All right, so today is one of my favorite days for the lawn care season as we get into fall. Kind of around Labor Day here in St. Louis is a good time to go ahead and aerate the lawn. And so I actually had an aerator that I had reserved for today, but when I got to the place where I put the reservation in for that piece of equipment, I was told that they do not have it in the store and that I couldn't rent it because they had rented it out to somebody else.
I know why we have reservations.
I don't think you do. If you did, I'd have a car. See, you know how to take the reservation, you just don't know how to hold the reservation.
Which kind of defeats the purpose of a reservation, if you ask me. It reminds me of one of my favorite Seinfeld episodes I used to watch when I was a kid. So anyway, my neighbor Wally was nice enough to bail me out today. He has a John Deere kind of lawn tractor with a pull behind aerator on it that he came over here and he let me use. He actually came in and just poked a bunch of holes in here for me. So thank you, Wally, for bailing me out. But so let's talk about aeration real quick, the benefits of aerating the lawn. Now, when I am aerating my lawn, one of the things I want to do is I want to incorporate a little bit of oxygen, some water and fertilizer kind of down below the canopy of the grass. And because I mow low, I like to come back and incorporate some sand as I'm looking to change my soil profile. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to add some sand into the lawn after I've cleared up all these cores. The reason that I want to remove the cores once I've gone ahead and done the aeration process is because I've been incorporating sand into my soil profile. One, because I want to amend the heavy clay profile that I have, and I want to use a little bit of sand to sort of help with the drainage because clay just does not drain very well. And then I also want to use the sand to sort of level some areas. And so when you're doing low cut mowing like I am with the bluegrass, that's really what's going to help you get that smooth kind of countertop look. Now, the reason you want to pick up cores if you are incorporating sand is because when you pull the core up to the surface, you're bringing dirt back up to the top of your sand layer, and you do not want to layer sand and dirt on top of each other because then you get serious compaction problems. So by bringing the core to the surface, raking it, getting it out of the way, you can then use your sand to fill in the holes from where the aeration tool or machine actually put those holes in the ground. But then one thing I learned from actually watching superintendents core aerate golf greens is that they actually will bring the cores to the surface, let them sit and dry in the sun for maybe an hour, and then if you come back and you rake over the cores as you're pulling them into piles. I actually used my backpack blower to actually blow them into piles, and what I was noticing is that, and the whole idea behind the golf course is doing this, is that the sand that's in that soil will actually separate, and the sand goes back down into the dirt, and then leaving you just the dirt core. And then you rake up the dirt core and remove it so that you can go ahead and add more sand. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish cleaning up these cores, and then I've got some sand behind me. We'll take a look at some of the material that I've got that I'm gonna go ahead and top dress with. So I was able to source the sand that I get from a material supply company that has really good prices. They deliver for relatively cheap. They're pretty close to my house. The thing that I like about what they have is they have very coarse masonry sand. And this is actually, this is 2 cubic yards, so this is actually about a third of the amount of material that I used last year whenever I was top dressing my lawn. The reason being is because I only want to do about a 1/4 inch on the top dressing. With cool season grass, you really don't want to get too heavy with the sand because you could choke it out, and you certainly don't want to do that, especially if you're going to come in during a renovation time and actually kind of build on the turf that you already have in the lawn. If this is a situation where you've killed off the entire thing and you want to come back and level with sand, by all means go hog wild with it. But since I have an existing turf here and I want to use some of this sand to go in and top dress about a 1/4 inch over the entire lawn, I'm using a lot less than I normally would and making sure that I'm using a really coarse sand that's going to break down and get down into those aeration cores and also kind of work its way into that top maybe inch or so of the soil that's already in the lawn, and just give me a little bit more benefit for the, getting water and air and fertilizer and nutrients down into the root zone. So let's go ahead and start throwing some sand. Well, it's time for round 2 of chucking sand. Yesterday I thought I was going to get through the whole process, and then it started to pour down rain. No big deal, I just needed to wait for things to dry out a little bit. So I guess everybody, you know, the famous quote by Mike Tyson, everyone's got a plan till you get punched in the mouth. I got punched in the mouth by a little bit of rain yesterday, but no big deal. Got a little bit of sand left here behind me. I got my trusty Gorilla Cart. The beauty of working from home sometimes is you get things done on your lunch break. And so that's what we're gonna try and do today. So let's start chucking a little bit more sand. I've got some of the areas that I needed to fill in kind of along the sidewalk, areas that have settled in the past. I've got those filled in a little bit more. So now the plan is to kind of feather it in towards the house and some of the low-lying areas that I've got. And then we're ready to throw some seed down. So let's go ahead and start feathering in some of the sand in those spots. Now, while you enjoy watching me chuck this sand into my lawn, I wanted to briefly touch on another added benefit to adding sand into a clay soil profile like I have here in Missouri, where we have a lot of rich soils. Rich soils are great, but the problem with adding additional organic material to these soils is that you begin having too much of a good thing. Too much organic matter is not that great, especially for turf grass. If you've done a soil test recently and you've looked at your organic matter or the amount of organic matter you have in your soil, if you're over 3.5% to 4%, you're actually on the really high side of that, and that can cause some issues down the road. It could even cause some of the nutrients you're adding into your lawn to be toxic to the plant at the time that you don't want it. There's also another reading on your soil test next to organic matter, depending on where you have your soil test done, but it's called ENR, and that is the estimated nutrient release. The estimated nutrient release is going to be nutrients that the soil microbes are going to make available to the turf plant when they are most active. And the soil microbes are usually most active during the hot summer months, exactly when you really do not want those nutrients to be released. And this could be a reason why a lot of the lawns around here in Missouri, some of them look better than others during the peak summer months because of the percentage of organic material that's in the soils may be too high, and you're getting too much nutrient release at the wrong time. So this is the rake that I've used for all of my sand leveling projects. I used it last year on my initial renovation, and then I used it out here to do some leveling on the follow-up to top dressing on the sand on my lawn. And this is a 48-inch rake. This is a rake that was provided to me by the Rockland Company. The Rockland Company has an Amazon store where they provide a lot of leveling tools, lawn tools, and things of that nature. But the 48-inch rake is 100% stainless steel. It has a 72-inch handle, which I know some people aren't a big fan of the connection on the handle, but honestly, because it's 72 inches, there's a bolt right here. You wouldn't be able to ship this thing if you had the full 72 inches. So it's cut in half. It ships to you in 3 pieces. You get the initial handle and then the 48-inch head. And one thing I can say about this rake is it's got a lot of weight to it. It is really heavy. The problem that I have with it is in tight areas, it's hard to level that out. I usually come back with maybe a push broom, or I use my landscape rake. It's one I got from Lowe's. It's about 36 inches. But this works really well for kind of pushing the sand down into the canopy and helping the grass pop back up. It's what I've used for all of my renovation projects. I think the price on this one online right now is about $179, which is kind of right in line with R&R. So if you're looking for a leveling rake, go to Amazon, go to the Rockland Company, and they should have some of these rakes on hand for you. This is a really nice one, full stainless steel. It doesn't have any of the open chambers or anything. It's definitely solid, definitely has enough weight to kind of help you push the sand around. I've used it, like I said, this is the second time I've used it on my lawn for a full top dressing, and so far I have no complaints about this rake. So that was fun. The lunch break sand leveling process is now complete. I used the rest of the sand that I had over here. This was 2 yards of sand, so that's just a little under 3 tons. But you can see I've got a lot of areas over here where the sand is really thick. There's a thick sand cap kind of along the sidewalk. And then when I did my original leveling project last year, I didn't have enough material to actually do this boulevard strip. So this is all new material in here, so it's sanded pretty heavy. Now the plan going forward is to actually use a different type of seed varieties, and I'll touch on that in the next video, but I'm going to try a couple different varieties on both sides. But the best way I have found to get the sand to go in completely, since I'm doing a really light top dressing. Like I mentioned before, I'm doing a 1/4 inch on the entire lawn, and then they come back and level it out with a leveling rake. Is when you are applying the sand, if you're doing it by hand, like I did, if you don't have the equipment, maybe you don't have a spreader that will throw sand, the compost spreader is really good for that. They kind of throw the sand out evenly. If you just take a shovel, and when you throw the sand out, you leave the shovel kind of parallel to the ground, and you kind of just slice through the air like you're swinging a baseball bat. It helps get the sand in to kind of just go over the top of the canopy and fall right down. So when you come back with your leveling rake, it's a whole lot easier for you to actually get the sand in the canopy, and then it helps pop up some of that existing turf that we've got down on the ground. From this point, I think all I really need to do is come back with the seed. I'm probably going to run the sprinklers out here just to kind of get the sand to kind of wash out a little bit, kind of level out before I go ahead and put the seed in. I'm going to seed directly into the sand. I'm not going to use a top dressing like peat moss or anything like that. We're going to seed directly right into the canopy that we've got here. I've done several lawn renovations recently. I've omitted the peat moss, and I've gotten great results without using it. So to me, peat moss is kind of an added step. It's kind of expensive and a bit unnecessary, in my opinion. I talked a little bit about the leveling tool I used for this project. I really like that leveling tool. As I mentioned before, that was provided to me by the Rockland Company. It's a 48-inch level, so if you don't have a drag, or if you don't have a pull behind drag tool that you can come out and pull the sand around with, that's a really good tool to use because of the weight, the size, everything about it makes it easy to kind of move the sand around when you're doing a 3,000 square foot area like the one you have here. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.